Just for how many years we've been doing this, now somebody like goes to the old, so we should trust in Carol.
All right, Greg.
Morning.
Good weekend. It's Wednesday, isn't it? Why am I asking you about last weekend? I was thinking, what did I do this last week? Oh, God.
That sounds like a good one.
It wasn't too bad, no. My brother-in-law is real.
I said, I don't play hard.
We haven't seen him in a couple of years. It's nice to see him, but I'm already working on
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had the best.
That's a weekend visit only.
Yes.
There's a little green line. All right, it's 8:02 and let's get started. This is the Downtown Development Authority of the City of Adrian's August 11th meeting, and welcome to all of you, board members and friends. Thank you for being here. I believe Ashley will be taking notes today. Meredith is going to be absent today. And as well as Devaney, who's our new member, she's in Alaska. She had already had that trip planned, so that we know that is the case. So I think both those are excused. We have never went through a process of making a motion to excuse the members, but it probably is good practice so that when we're looking at our bylaws and missing and the like. So I'll entertain a motion to excuse the two of those members.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Pardon me? Who's, is it Drake or Jerry in first?
If we can all turn our microphones on so the Zoom audience can hear us.
All right, that's a good idea.
All right then.
Thank you, Drake.
If the green light is on, you're good.
Where's the button? There it is. Okay, we're good. Thank you.
All right, all those in favor of excusing Meredith and Devaney indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. All right. There's an agenda in front of you, and before we even do that, we're going to add in Dave Thomas under Promotion Events Committee. We're going to add Back to the Bricks. He's going to talk to us about Back to the Bricks. So you can add that to that. And then under, I'm going to make Brett stay here the whole meeting. Did we get copies of the sign to everybody? Is it in here? Okay. So let's place that. And the Beautification and Branding Committee, just after Emily speaks. And for the sign approval. All right, any other additions or things that we'd add to the agenda today?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to put, just for discussion, I'm gonna call, I don't know what to call it, visioning session or whatever, a planning session prior to the transition to Main Street. Can we put that on for discussion?
We can. Let's do that. Let's do that under Main Street, as well as the last item on Main Street, be discussion of visioning. Okay,
Thank you.
excellent. Any other additions to the agenda?
One additional, I would like to see if we could have on there someplace an opportunity for Greg to make a report or a comment from the city's perspective. I think at this meeting, if we have a city staff person coming, and I've talked to Greg about this, so can we just put that on someplace for city to be able to have an agenda item to make any comments that might be pertinent to anything going on between the city and the DDA, which is a lot of stuff.
All right, city, as relates to DDA, right after Main Street discussion. Have Greg speak. All right, any other additions to the agenda? If none, I'll hear a motion to accept the agendas with those additions.
So moved.
And that's Mark and that's Dave. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Excellent. And in your packets, you received the minutes from our July 14th meeting. Is there any additions, corrections, or deletions there? If none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
So move, Ryder.
All right. Support Thomas. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the minutes as presented indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Excellent. Let's make sure we see who's here. All right, gotcha. All right, we're going to move into some action items here. We have the Promotion and Events Committee, and Michelle, Dog Days of Summer went well. Just wanted to ask you, you got a mic over there?
I do.
All
Sorry, I
right,
can barely
awesome.
hear you guys over here. You might have to lean into your mics.
All right, gotcha. So just a little comment on First Fridays downtown events and maybe a little bit, on here, Dara cups and receptacles. So,
Sure.
Mr. Chair, before you do that,
Uh-huh.
can I be recognized for one moment?
sure,
I see you have a couple of representatives who are on Zoom.
right.
Just to be clear, they cannot participate in this meeting as members of the board. They can participate as members of the public. But the period for which that was allowed, which was when there was a declared state of emergency in the county, has expired. That was at the end of July. And so participation in public meetings at this point has to be in person at the meeting.
Thank you. I should have said that at the beginning. I did not make that clear in my emails, nor did I really clarify that in our last meeting. So Tim, I apologize. I apologize to any DDA members that are in on Zoom that didn't realize that that would be the case. So as far as the minutes, as it reflects to the votes that we've made so far, just to make a note that Tim's, while he was present, that vote is not counted. I don't think there's another one up there that's in a voting member. Who's in the bottom right corner? I'm not sure. All right.
Okay, so First Friday went pretty well. We had another really large crowd. Dog Days went pretty good. Everybody seemed to have a good time. A few things I think to adjust for next year, but we raised quite a bit of money for the Humane Society and it went pretty well. Dara cups, there were a lot of Dara cups this time, all over the ground, over the sidewalks, the street. I spent a significant amount of time Friday night after the event cleaning those up. So I think the discussion about receptacles should probably take place sooner rather than later to figure that out, because it's, we don't want people coming in town Saturday morning and looks like we had the party that we had. So other than that, I think the welcome bash is coming up on the 27th. So I'm sure Emily will talk about that. Artalicious is right around the corner, so that's coming up too. I did want to mention the thought of downtown Halloween trick-or-treating. I know in the past the DDA wanted to have an event. I don't know if you're still interested in that or what that looks like. Halloween is on a Sunday this year, so businesses probably wouldn't be open. But if that's something you guys want to do, we would probably need to start working on that pretty quickly. So that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Michelle. I forgot to put Halloween on there. You'd even send me an email on that. So with Dara cups, let's go to receptacles right now. The last point in the discussion, we looked at asking the 11 or 12 business owners that are participating in Dara to provide a trash can of some sort for Dara cups. The discussion led into that Dara cups don't necessarily get put away at the various establishments, that they can end up all over town if necessary. There was a discussion a long time back where we had some money allocated for recycling type trash cans in the downtown as well. And I don't know if we can meld that whole thought together as it was related to, remember, we looked at these pullovers for the trash cans with some logo type branding and the like with the city in partnership and all of that type of look. So I think we have to make probably a step forward somewhere in this as far as either requiring this from our business owners or coming up with a creative idea that matches up. I just had visited a couple cities and I see that they have their trash can and recycling next to each other. I see that a lot. So they just match them up and the like, but just want to open that up for discussion.
Okay, point of clarification, aren't the receptacles required? So any business who has the Dara who's not putting one out is kind of not within the spirit of the law. or whatever you call it,
Right.
right?
Of the idea, yes.
Yeah.
But I think the problem that we are having is they're just not, it's not, I think, on the businesses of the downtown restaurants and bars. It's just people are disregarding these cups and just putting them wherever they want. So they get to the end of the block and there may not be a trash can there and they finish their cocktail and they're just chucking it. So I think our discussion was, I think a couple months ago was, looking at doing as we moved into the Main Street programming, that we looked at maybe additional funding to go to recyclables and things of that nature. We formed a small committee, but we haven't met yet to investigate this further. But obviously, I think maybe we have to take a little bit more strategic action moving forward. I know that you displayed those covers and those trash cans, and maybe this is a time that we take a relook at that and maybe work with all of our downtown businesses with these trash cans, maybe buying 15 of them with 15 wraps and placing them, at the end of the blocks. I think that is our main area where these things are being collected. And what we can do, and actually Brett sent me a text a few months ago in regards to the DAR cups, that we can actually maybe even charge an additional fee for those DAR cups to help cover the expenses for these trash cans and these covers as well. Our cases of cups are $120 a piece. We can look at charging $150 a piece instead. And there we can recoup those costs for those expenses for those garbage cans. But obviously, we're all going to have to work together as the DDA and the city and our downtown businesses to figure out a plan when it comes to placement of those trash cans when we have special events, and who's going to manage those things. Do we work with the city to do that? Because I know on Saturday mornings, they have been coming down and emptying trash cans, which is greatly appreciated. But we need to come up with just a little bit better, obviously, a plan to help with this.
Michelle, where were those cups? Were they near any Dara establishments? Were they just under awnings because it had rained? I'm just kind of curious if you.
Yeah, most of them were not actually near any restaurants or businesses. They tended to be like kind of in the middle of the block. A lot of them were actually in the street next to the curb, or they were sitting down on the sidewalk. I mean, it's like Dave said, they're, walking around and there's not a trash can nearby and they just put it wherever, So I don't think it's necessarily that the businesses aren't putting their receptacle out. I think it's just a matter of maybe being more strategic about where we put receptacles, and just making sure and you're still going to have people that are going to just put them wherever, but that this will help a little bit.
Like Michelle said, we're always going to have a certain subset who will do whatever they want. Would it be useful if we ask the restaurants to, when they give somebody a DAR cup, just say, please throw this in a receptacle when you're done?
I think that depends a lot on, the traffic in the moment, when you've got a line of people looking for their to-go beverage, it can be hard to regulate the comment. But I have a feeling that a lot of this is because of the cars in the street, people using the street as the walkway. So they stop, chat with someone who owns a vehicle, set their cup down, intending to pick it back up, but of course, they don't. So I wonder if it's almost for First Fridays that we invest in, I don't know what the number is, X number of trash cans that if the street's closed, go in the middle of the street specifically for DAR cups. I don't know.
And I
Seems
think
like
that's where, I think, Michelle, you were by yourself on that Friday, pretty much.
Well, that's the thing, when you start doing stuff like that, then you're going to need staff to
Yeah,
put those in, take them out. And we,
Yeah.
I always have a couple people to help me throughout the evening, but those are volunteers and I
Yeah.
can't always guarantee they're there. And if it ends up being just me and one other person, that it gets tough. And, we don't mind going around and checking for the cups. We do that just to try and clean up what we can. But that's not a bad idea. And I don't necessarily think that that's incorrect. That could be part of the problem. But yeah, I'm not sure how exactly we would facilitate that.
Could we just reconvene the committee and actually have a meeting?
sounds good, yes.
Who's chairing that committee?
I guess I am.
From what I'm listening to here, there's an issue with, maybe we need to consider placement. We
Mhm.
need to consider education of our downtown business owners and the people that are participating in First Friday. So even in that placement, it needs to be bold, I think, as to what that is. Please throw your cups here or something on the outside. Remember, this was approved by our city commission for us to have this. And I don't want to, I don't mean, except there was a concern about this particular thing at the very beginning. So I appreciate the committee getting together. Michelle carries a heavy burden on the nighttime and so that Saturday morning doesn't look that way. So maybe we have to, start figuring out how we're going to place volunteers in that area and have people accountable to this situation. So I appreciate the committee moving forward. Mark, do you have something on that?
Well, Mr. Chair, just to support what you just said, that we initiated this in partnership with the city, and we owe it to the city staff to handle any of the negative consequences. We can't just propose these ideas and then hand it over to the city for their problem. It's our problem until we
agree.
resolve it.
Mhm.
Is there someone that you would suggest, Greg or Michelle, from the city that is responsible for the placement of our current trash receptacles and then the cleaning, who empties them to make sure they're empty before First Fridays, or somebody that we could have join our committee?
Well, it's the Parks Department that empties the trash cans currently, grudgingly, I would say.
Not a fun job.
And so that, not to steal my thunder for later on, but we are currently looking for a new Parks and Recreation Director, which is a new position for the city. And so there's some transition in that department, and its responsibilities are is something that the new leader will have to better define. For the moment, that's under Matt Tomaszewski's guidance. And so if you wanted somebody to represent that department on your committee, that would be the guy.
Okay, thank you.
Man.
Jerry, do you have a committee meeting set up for your beautification and branding?
We don't, but certainly.
I mean, because like I said, we kind of put that in that category. I mean, I don't have a problem leading the charge on that.
Mhm.
But if you just want to add me onto that committee then, and then I can kind of chair the trash can recycling
Okay.
piece of it.
Okay, we'll move that to the committee there underneath that.
Yeah.
Subcommittee.
Yeah,
Got it.
Thank you.
thank you.
Once we have a more robust volunteer program also that will enable us to enact more measures like putting out more trash cans temporarily too. So it sounds like that would benefit multiple things to get that set in place.
I agree. Any further discussion on receptacles and dark cups?
I had a quick comment, just maybe for David or whoever's gonna be on this committee. Figure a shotgun approach to this would probably be great. So any little thing that might help. Maybe the next time you have your cups printed, say, keep downtown pretty, don't litter on the cup. Top of mind, might make
Mhm.
5 people do it that wouldn't
Mhm.
have normally.
No, and I think when you think about it from a citizen standpoint, it's quite a something I never thought would come to pass in this world when it came out, and it still probably is a privilege to have. So we want to make sure we do the best we can with it.
You could print it on the bottom of the cup and put a white sticker behind it. So that way it's staring at them every time they take a drink.
Maybe we should have made Drake the chairman. Gotcha.
Mhm.
All right, we'll move on to Halloween. Now, I just want to step back in time and go back to Chuck Jacobson when he decided he wanted to run the downtown Halloween, and he got volunteers together. And if you guys remember, I think it was 2019. Time just changes. It was raining that night. It was somewhat cold, and it was unbelievable the amount of kids that showed up and families. So I can't take it on, but we need to hopefully find somebody that was wanting to be a champion like Chuck was at that time, because he took the whole thing on himself. He even drove to some other city so he could get candy at a discount price and the volume so he could pass it out to the various businesses, because the big concern at the time was you're gonna make us buy all this candy and there's so many kids that come down here. And, but you talk about an attraction for families, it really is one of those signature events. Trick or treat would probably be on Saturday, wouldn't it, Michelle, instead of Sunday? Would trick or treat be on Saturday or would it be on Sunday?
I mean, either one. If we want to do it when the businesses are open, I think Saturday would be
Right.
the better choice.
Right, so I would think we could target that Saturday, so. I don't know if anybody wants to jump on that because probably want to, or create a committee or anything. I know it's a heavy one.
Yeah,
It's a heavy one.
we have prior.
Are we
engagements.
certain that the downtown businesses really support this effort? I know it brings a lot of people downtown, but as business owners, I remember prior conversations where some businesses were definitely not in favor because their regular customers can't come in because the streets are so full. I'm not speaking on behalf of the Croswell. I'm just asking if we know for sure that people want this to happen. I'm not the boogeyman, I promise.
Would we just put a call out possibly saying, hey, we want to do this event and participating businesses that want to support this and participate in the downtown trick or treating event? Just respond to us and say, all right, and we just give them, this is, you need so much candy. You need to be open from 4 to 7 if you like. And if you want to participate, great. But if not,
So would we want to say that we need a dozen or 15 businesses that commit in order to run it? So shall we get the commitment before we make the decision
But
here?
I think we need to survey the downtown business owners right off the bat to ask if they, and see what kind of response we get. And so we're still in lack of a champion as well. And if you don't have a champion, it's going to be difficult on that front. But if we invite and we have 15 businesses, we still have to close the streets. We have to take responsibility for the whole event itself and bringing it, opening it back up and the whole thing. I remember way back when I used to support this so much because it gave an alternative to families to get out of the traffic hazards of the outside streets, create a safe environment. We had costume contests. We had all kinds of fun stuff we've done over the years. And there certainly was our fair share of kickback by some of the downtown businesses. So why don't we start a survey, ask everybody in the downtown businesses, unless you guys see it differently, if they would support such an event. We should get a read by next meeting.
And I even wonder too, if we should, after doing that, if it does look like there's interest, the businesses are open. They're used to being open later on Fridays because of First Fridays. And, I'm just gonna put that elephant in the room out there. Saturday is a big party night for especially college students. And my fear is all the bars and that activity going on that Saturday night, that's just a big adult night for Halloween, let's put it that way. And so I would have a little bit of concern of possibly doing it that Saturday, and maybe Friday, the businesses would be more prone to it because they're already open and they're used to staying open later on Friday nights. And I don't think it's a big deal to have it a couple days before Halloween. I'm just throwing that out there as a thought.
So maybe we'll make that part of the survey as to what day, because Sunday, if the businesses are closed, the first thing we were thinking of is this brings attraction so that people will buy from the stores, and it really isn't that. So Sunday, where most businesses are closed, might be the better option on the trick or treat if that was the case. So let me sit in there. Go ahead, Jerry.
I wonder if it's worth inquiring with Chuck if he would be willing to champion it again. I mean,
Yeah.
it was such a passion project for him,
It
and
was.
I think he's still invested in the community, so.
Yes,
I'm seeing him tomorrow. I can ask him.
that'd be great.
Okay, great, nice job.
And I do know too, I actually met with the fairgrounds yesterday, and they are trying to do a lot more events on their, community events. They want to be more invested in the community instead of being like a separate little thing over there. And one of the things they were looking at was some like Halloween nights, possibly like a really big trick or treating event. They're not really sure what that all looks like yet because they just got done with the fair. So they were kind of all exhausted from that, and the board was going to be meeting soon, but I know they are looking at doing some sort of Halloween events. So, that's another thing just to put out there to make you aware.
Excellent. All right, so there'll be an email you'll see that has questions on it regards to that, and Drake will talk to Chuck, see if he still wants to fire it up. All right, let's see here. Let's move to Dave. You've got a lot here. Let's talk about Artalicious and Phoenix Theory.
Okay, well, unfortunately, we've hit a snag with licensing for the Dara district. Obviously, a nonprofit organization cannot get a license to sell alcohol within the Dara district. The only way we can do that is the city has to suspend the Dara district for that time period. And obviously, that's the last thing that we want to do to our downtown restaurants and bars. So our situation is, obviously, we still want to have this party in the downtown area. We have two issues. One is logistics on placement of the stage and the band. And number two is security of sponsors now that have already committed to me that, we will not be able to obviously honor some of those things such as drink tickets, wristbands, and et cetera. So there could be opportunity of lost funding because of the event. And so I've been working with obviously Don and Mike in regards to this event. And obviously I'm going to need support from the board on how we move forward with this event. I passionately want to have Phoenix Theory downtown, but we need to make sure that our city supports it, our DDA supports it, and then our downtown restaurants and businesses support it. So I've been talking to Don and Mike over the last few days. Power is somewhat of an issue if we try to place them on either sides of Maumee Street. And obviously working with Don's artists and the nonprofits create a logistical problem when we want to have the band and the stage set up. So South Main really looks like our only solid option when it comes to power, but we can work off of East or West Maumee. So the only thing is we're not going to be able to really use this as a major fundraiser for us to sell beer and that nature. So would we still like to move forward and have Phoenix Theory play? They've already committed. We've already signed a contract with them. Don's artists and nonprofits finish at 7. And right now, I think our contract starts with Phoenix Theory starting at 7. So if we bump Phoenix Theory up until 8 o'clock to start, so it gives an hour for Don's team and artists to kind of vacate those premises, and then we can get stage and everything else set up for the band. Would you guys be open with still supporting this event as we move forward?
So I talked to David a little bit about this, and the idea is, do we have enough sponsorships to cover the cost of Phoenix Theory and all those that help support stages and things that need to be, put together to make this happen? I myself will start with just the thought that if it's a break even, it's a win. Because if we create that kind of activity, it happens inside our restaurants and it happens inside our local players, and the Dara district would become, a part of that whole idea. But we cannot put a fence around it and do what we thought we could do, or we have to suspend the Dara Cups or the Dara Cups for that night. So discussion.
And you guys,
Since we have the Artalicious wizard in the house himself.
You're right.
May I comment?
Yes, you may.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you. We want to do this.
All right.
Plain out, we want to see this happen. We have artists on East Maumee Street, North Main Street, nonprofits on West Maumee Street. Our traffic flow, bringing people in the morning and out at night, is to come in on West Maumee Street, check in, go straight down to East Maumee or up to North Main, and that's the traffic pattern we have to follow. South Main has always been our food court, and in years past, we often had a stage at the very end of it. But the issue here is when people come to listen to a band, they want to drink alcohol. At least I do. I don't know. I know you're recording this. Jim, I see you laughing on the screen there. And so since we can't have a beer tent, we have to really try to figure out how we can get the stage and our food vendors as close to the four corners as possible. So that I can get up and walk over to Brett's place and well, I could go to two places. I get a cup of coffee if I wanted one, or I could go to Rice and Barley, or I could go to 109, probably, I might not, but anyway, I can at least get to most of the restaurants because I know that people that are going to come to the show want to do that. So we are going to have to work out some logistics. And one of the issues we have, probably the only issue we have, is putting our food trucks as close to the four corners as we can. And the one restaurant that's near, the Moose Club serves food. So we'd have to either waive the 100-foot rule for the food trucks for that particular day. And I don't know whether that can happen or not, but
Can we get city commission to approve that or no? Or does 109 or does Moose Lodge have to sign off?
probably the Moose Lodge, right?
Yeah, if the Moose Lodge signs off, you can do that.
Okay.
So I mean, I think we can make that work. David and I would have to look at the length of our food carts and try to get them as close as we can to the four corners. At least two of them we can probably have off the street up on the bump out areas.
the bump outs.
Yeah. So it's possible. I mean, it's not ideal, but if these guys are as good as they say they are, and I hear a lot of people talk about them, they're going to draw a crowd. And I think our restaurants are going to get business. It's just that we have to kind of make everybody that comes aware of the fact that we don't have that beer tent. And here's where you can go and get a good drink or two or whatever. I don't think Brett would probably come around with a tray and deliver drinks, but he might. So.
I have a question for Brett.
Yeah.
Michelle told me that you got an additional license so you can serve drinks outside.
Well, yeah.
Okay. Now, is this something that other downtown restaurants and bars can do? Is it an additional license?
Like you're just talking about extending an outdoor area.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a permit.
It's just a permit. Easy application.
Yeah, I think the chief has to sign off on it though, but other than that, it's just. a permit.
Okay, where they can actually serve drinks right outside their restaurant. Or they have to
Yeah,
go
you
inside.
expand your boundary.
Has to be in your boundary.
Yeah, you just expand your fence essentially.
Mhm.
But you would still be
So maybe the Moose Club could.
doing the
extend
drinks
that.
inside and bringing them out, right? I guess, or would you actually set up a bar
I see
outside?
your logic.
Yeah, you can. It's just, it's like what ZZ does. ZZ's.
Yeah.
does like a
Oh, yeah.
permit.
Yeah.
All right.
So I mean, we can encourage our downtown restaurants and bars to do that for that event and obviously for First Fridays. I mean, it's a standard. How much was the fee, Brett?
Oh, it's usually like $50 or something like that.
I mean, it seems like a no-brainer, for our downtown restaurants. We can just encourage them to do that and get that. How long did it take you to get? Pretty quick?
Yeah, I think they'll usually take. Probably like a month.
Okay, so it'll be a little tight.
Yeah.
And Brett, is that what you were doing at First Friday then? That's what you did to be out there?
Yeah, I mean, it's different when I was actually, those slushies were not alcoholic, but we were filling the ones inside and then getting them out. So.
I just think it's a great idea anyways for Artalicious because those restaurants, even First Friday, anytime, any special event, those restaurants it gets hard to get in there just to get a drink.
Yeah.
To get back out. And if they could be outside, it'd be quicker for when you're just wanting to get a Dara cup,
Mhm.
a Dara drink. I do think that's a great idea no matter what anyways, just for that reason.
So
Okay.
is there a conflict between DARA and this ordinance or this outside cafe extension ordinance? Because it's getting me confused with their other restriction because I
No, I don't think so. I mean, what they're doing is as Brett said, is extending their premises.
right.
Yeah.
Right, and so that area, I've heard different things, I guess. I mean, I guess the only place I ever saw this was the article in the paper the other night suggesting that you couldn't have a Dara cup in the establishment that served the Dara cup. I don't think that's true. But you certainly couldn't have other, the definition of the so-called common area doesn't include licensed premises. So the licensed premises is limited to serving its own drinks, but that's all they're going to serve in
Understood.
there anyway.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to thank Dave for his work on getting this together, and it's unfortunate that we got derailed to a degree. I'd like to support, Mr. Chair, your suggestion that if it can be relatively be a revenue neutral for the DDA board, that we should go ahead with it. If it can't, under normal circumstances, we'd like to have an opportunity to look at the package and then evaluate it. And then in this case, we're having to make decisions kind of right up against the wall here.
Right.
So it's pretty hard to try to get my arms around the whole thing. So do you want a motion to that effect, or?
There'd be a motion. Yes.
I'd like to move that we support the entertainment proposal that Dave made with some limits on the financial part. How do we want?
Do you feel like you need some buffer there?
No, I think I can work with my sponsors, and I think I can secure enough to pay for the band and pay for the stage. So, and maybe a touch more.
All right.
And so,
moved.
There's been a motion. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Drake. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. All right. Thank you for that great discussion. Thank you
Don,
for
Mike,
your
thank you as well.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank
your
you,
help on this, guys.
I Appreciate it.
Yeah, we got some. work to
I
do.
think the logistics will be worked out. I'm not concerned, Mike, right? Great. All right. Phoenix Theory, back to the bricks. You're on stage again.
Yeah. All right. So obviously we presented this last year, Back to the Bricks. Obviously their promo tour, they were under a little bit of another timeline issue. Obviously these guys would like to come June 3rd. These are their prospective dates, June 3rd through June 7th. Obviously it's a big car show, 325 cars, at least 2 people per car. We need to form a quick committee and submit our application by August 27th. Yeah, we're a little bit behind, but if you read the submission guidelines, they're relatively simple, and honestly, Justin from Visit Lenawee is already working on a lot of these things. Him and I were kind of taking a hold of this 2 years ago. So, but I'm just looking for permission again to move forward with submitting this and having the DDA's full support at this time. And maybe having a couple of you join the committee to help get this organized and ready to go for June of 2022.
Have we verified that we have room for 325 cars? I'm only asking that because I know our numbers have been really high at the car shows for First Friday, and we've actually been turning people away. So, and I don't think it's been that high, but we also had other closures going on, but I'm just asking to know if we know we have room for that.
I think if we utilized, obviously, most of the downtown and maybe even try to utilize the pavilion and maybe extending down towards the armory as well and utilizing those areas and maybe even Huntington parking lot with some of these things. And obviously that would put a little scrunch on parking for us. But I think if we could put together a quick survey, I know I was going to work with Michelle on this. I know she's done a lot with the maps and with the car shows and things of that nature to see if we could obviously fit 300 and possibly even over 400 cars if we're going to invite, other enthusiasts to this event. And so, but I would sure like to try and not give up this major revenue generator for our downtown.
And Michelle, since you've had, seems like you've had something to do with parking a bunch of cars downtown in times past. How many cars do we typically have on a fully packed First Fridays?
Yeah, so we've been up to like 165 cars. I think it's possible to fit that many cars, but you're gonna have to close more streets. So right now, we don't utilize all of our streets for parking cars. If we did, we would have another full block and a half that we could use. So that's some right there. That probably is going to get you to about 250-ish maybe. So you're still going to need more room. We did close this last time. We extended our closure down West Maumee to the Armory to accommodate some other activities we had going on with dog days. So that's a possibility. I would recommend for your committee. I'd like to be on it. And then I would say maybe Matt from the city, because those, and actually you should probably even maybe involve Chief Emmerich. The traffic flow becomes an issue. And we had that this last time. We had to work out how we were going to work that intersection. You really need to leave that intersection at Winter and Maumee open.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you end up with one way through town and traffic will get backed up, and it's, and this closing parking lots also becomes an issue when you have a big event like that, because you need the parking. So yeah, it's a lot to work through, but I think it's possible.
What if we were to think of the Napa parking lot, which Mark and I, you've talked with them about Armory events, so they're potentially supportive of downtown events like that, and maybe using them as an overflow for if we needed the space and kind of extending east from there.
I think there and Adrian Plaza, the old Plaza, Family Dollar, whatever, there's a large parking area that we'd want to incorporate. We need to get that locked down for that event. But I certainly, I'd like to move that we approve the plan to move forward with this.
Please
project.
submit our application.
Yeah.
And then, because it's still a pending approval as well.
Right.
So, Jerry, do you have any events that weekend, June 3rd through the 7th of 2022? Anything scheduled yet?
Yeah, we haven't scheduled, so I don't think
Okay.
it's a problem. Are the streets closed the entire time?
It'd be just for the one day, but we don't know what day that would be yet.
So the weekday, isn't it? They don't do it.
It's the June 3rd through the 7th is a Friday through Tuesday, I believe.
And just to note, that's actually looks like a first Friday.
Ooh,
It is.
So
Yeah.
we obviously wouldn't be able to have our regular car show if we did that.
They actually encourage,
Do they really?
yes, they encourage.
So
They want organizations, clubs, and they want as much as festive. They want us to either book a DJ or a band, kind of similar to our First Fridays.
Okay.
So we can probably ride that in our submission and in our application as well, maybe encouraging them to be here on a Friday. And most of their hotel stays are either 1 or 2 nights. So we need to make sure we verify that, because some cities require a 2-night stay. So they want to make sure that, it's 1 or 2 nights mandatory between our hotels.
Well, 500 cars downtown might be a bit of a challenge.
It'd be fun though.
It would be.
Mhm.
It would be.
Have you ever been to Woodward Dream Cruise?
Mm.
That's what it would be like. It's crazy up
Mm.
there, but
Mm.
it's really fun and it brings in so many people. And
Mm.
I think it would be a really nice highlight for a town and to show people what our downtown and what Adrian
I
has to
think this,
offer.
and you look into us being on the select level of Main Street at this time, this would be big for us.
Motion on the floor, looking for a
Yeah, I
second.
know, I was waiting. Just a second. There is a motion on the floor. Is there support to approve for David and the committee to submit application by the August 27th deadline? There's support. Support by Mayor Heath. So is there any further discussion? David, thank you for all your commitments here. I appreciate it. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. All right. Is there any other activities?
No,
All
I'm
right,
good
you're
right now.
You're good? Okay.
Then we'll talk about October
All right.
after I get done with these.
So we're going to move over to Drake and the bicentennial of Adrian of 2025. So Drake.
Yes, so I was talking with John over at the Historical Society here recently on a project that we're working on together. And he brought to my attention that we're rapidly approaching a bicentennial date. And as we're getting involved with more events and volunteers and all that fun stuff there, he suggested that the DDA might be an appropriate platform to help partner with some other organizations in the area and just think about what we could do to make this an appropriate type of celebration for that year. He did pass on to me a brochure, which was put out by the Adrian Chamber of Commerce in 1925, documenting the centennial celebrations. So they have a whole week-long timeline of various things that they did to celebrate that event. And there's also a timeline of early events in Adrian and where they happened, which could be an interesting roadmap to follow. When I can actually get my scanner working, I will be able to scan this in and send it to all of you so you can look at it. But I do have a copy here if anybody would like to take a peek at that after the meeting. So I just wanted to plant that seed so we can start getting our gears churning. And I know, Mayor Heath, you've had a few thoughts on this matter as well and other partnerships in mind.
Yes, I would like to see moving forward here pretty quickly, some different groups coming together, and having celebrations throughout various areas. So maybe, there's something that is centered where it's just downtown. Maybe there's, something in the, this is one reason I met with the fairgrounds yesterday, and they are already going to talk to their board, and they were very excited about it, possibly like a parade like we did, like the fair parade ending at the fairgrounds and having like almost like a Heritage Days and like a big celebration up there, and and having it end there because it would be accessible. There had been talk about some things going on at Heritage Park, but it's not always accessible to everybody. And the fairgrounds is a lot more accessible. But, just different celebrations throughout that year. I know that former Mayor Berryman has been, big on our Christmas tree and making it the biggest it can be by 2025. And we're adding a couple of rings to that tree down at Comstock Park every year now, leading up to that. And, so there's already people talking about the Christmas time part of that same year. So I think, throughout that year, we have different celebrations in different ways and get everybody involved. So I think it would be great to see, just some great things happening here downtown, definitely during that time. And, I think back to when our country celebrated in 1976, we celebrated our 200th. And I remember that very well. I was living here and, there was a big parade and there was a lot of celebrations. And I think there was like banners through the downtown, like I was also little and everything looked bigger then, but it felt like it was a really big celebration. And, would love to see something like that for our own city now as we come into this era.
And knowing how much work it takes to put together a annually recurring event like Artilicious, these handful of years are going to go by quickly, very quickly.
So should there be a committee of the DDA to work on this? Should this committee form between the city and the DDA and other members? Did you want to?
I think it'd be great to have, I would like to see some members from the DDA join together with some members from the city, join together with, other groups and like everybody come together. Even I would like to even get the Historical Society involved, but like, let's bring all these people together and just really brainstorm and come up with a general plan for what it's going to look like and then start working on the details.
All right.
And John mentioned several great ideas from the historical perspective there too. So I think they should definitely have a seat or two at the table for sure.
And there's a rule in when it comes to boards that if you come up with a great idea, you become chairman. So Drake, thank you so much.
So moved.
So thank you so much for organizing all that. It's going to be great. I'm sure you work hand in hand with the mayor. Any questions for Drake on that? All right, you know what, if you guys don't mind, I'm just gonna move the sign approval so we don't hold Brad because he's a very busy man. So can we move the sign approval to right now?
Yes.
Yeah, is there a motion to to accept this beautiful thing that's gonna happen in downtown? It's awesome. So
Motion to support the sign approval.
there's been a motion, is there support?
Support.
And support by Heath, any other discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Brett, thank you. You have anything you want to tell us? Anything? All right.
When are you opening?
Awesome. All right, thank you. I just want to make sure in case you wanted to go. So just Brad, let's go to the finance committee. Each of you have your.
Yeah,
report.
sure. Well, this is our first report of this new fiscal year, so you see lots of zeros on our sheet here, which is means nothing's really happened in the last month. So let's keep it short.
All right, got it.
Yeah.
All right, that's fine. It happens like, well, this will give a lot more activity going forward. So any discussion on the financial report? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the financial report as presented.
So move.
It's been moved and there's support by Thomas. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. All right, financial report is entered into the record. Mark, is any new news on land acquisition? We're still working maybe and considering the.
Yeah, so, Mr. Chair, first of all, I just, the comment of the DDA's responsibility to, to promote the downtown. I believe a piece of that is the DDA board having, pretty good information, updated information about the availability of the buildings and resources that are downtown, such that with the set of priorities that we would have about who we want to get downtown to improve the mix of retail businesses downtown. And I'm referring to the Gibbs study and the MSU study, which I'll refer to later. But my point being that I believe that part of our responsibility as a board, working with the city, is to really understand what we have and what we want, and then to move what we have into what we want closer together. And my sense of the DDA's past is that there's so much available that it's never been much of a priority. So I would ask that we consider that in the context of this one particular issue, that we have a committee. I think it should be called something like the Retail Development Committee or the Property Committee, whatever you might want to call the group of us who say we're responsible to know what the inventory is in our downtown. We're responsible to know from this board what we want to get downtown. And we're responsible to report to the board and to the community how well we're going in the goal of getting what we want downtown. And I think that that's an extremely high responsibility of the DDA that personally as a board member, I've advocated. I haven't done that. And I'd like to see us do that and take that responsibility alive. So I prefer that the context of that particular piece of property, which we're talking to the land bank about, be under the auspices of the responsibility of us to have a better sense of the retail environment in the downtown. And with at some point in the future, some priorities about how to try to attract certain businesses. So with that, the one piece of property that has a for sale sign on it that we all see is the old Gene Christopher property. So we've approached the county land bank about what their intentions are, what they'd like to see done with it. And so we've had a meeting with them. We're meeting next week with what they call their sales committee, which is to understand what their interests are in keeping or developing the property and how we as a DDA board with the community, the city or developer might look at how that property might fit into some plan, which we don't have at this point, about how to move ahead. So I would never encourage this group to consider buying the property at this point because we have no plans or no concept about how to develop that. But with that, we're going to meet with them and ask them what they want to do and what they would do for us so that we can come back to this board and the community and say, this is some opportunity for us to move ahead. But without having the bigger picture, I would never come to this group and say we should buy something because we don't have a context to decide how much of a priority that is versus any other thing that we're doing. And that's why I'm hoping that we can discuss in a few minutes about some kind of a greater priority or plan to do this stuff. So we're meeting next week. We'll come back to this board in a month and tell you what we found out.
Excellent. Any questions for Mark? Awesome. All right, Beautification Branding Committee, Jerry.
Okay, so I'll start with an apology on the parklets that they are still in process. I have some questions for you, Greg, at the end of the meeting about that. So some design adjustments are happening. So I'm hoping that they'll be in place for Artelicious. That's the plan. Fall, winter decorations, I'm looking for a date. I think having those in place, there's been some years where we wanted the fall decorations in place for Artelicious. I think this year that's probably not a realistic goal, but having them in place by the October 1st Friday. So have a date that I can send out to this committee. We'll need our volunteer group to get together to help put those in place. You know, it's the tying up the corn stalks and the hay bales and that sort of thing. So that's the plan.
All right, thank you, Jerry, for all your work on that. We're still in process of parklets tonight. All right, anything I can do to help on that, let me know. Emily, anything going on with the website, social media, and the focus groups at Adrian College in Santa Heights?
Yeah, I sent you the analytics for this month, so I can forward that to the platforms. I don't have an update about the website. Research focus group from AC and SHU that we kind of talked about last meeting last month. I proposed with that consumer behavior study was going to be sent out the study to businesses to fill out, asking them what their rules are, what they would like to see, information that they were interested in. And then at the welcome back batch, AC, that group will have a table. It's called the PR Rush Creative Group, and it's a group that has developed on AC campus. So they'll be at that event getting information from the freshman building, and then we are going to put together a focus group, not just a freshman, but upperclassmen. So once upperclassmen are back on campus, we'll have to develop their information. So hopefully I'll have a little bit more information, but we won't have really hard data collection for like 2 more months.
All right.
So we're looking at that.
And that welcome back bash is what date?
The welcome back batch is August 27th.
Okay,
I went through Michelle's first Friday list and found most of the businesses that I recognize as businesses. There were some like personal. So if a business got missed, I did walk around and I spoke to all of the businesses and handed them a physical copy if I didn't have an email for them. So at this point, I believe all businesses have been reached out, but if I missed someone, I'm so sorry, it's not intentional. Everyone is welcome to participate. If you want to participate, you can email me. It's emily@visitlemonade.com. We have a lot of fun activities planned in the streets. Adrian is doing yoga out in the street. Oswald is doing a bunch of various events. DZ's is coming down, doing bowling down South Main. Nutrition 365 doing tea pong, which is like beer pong for the trash cans and football. And you get free tea samples when you make one. So there's a lot of really exciting things happening. We're working on food offerings right now. Back to school, especially with COVID. It's been hard to plan for all of that, but we're excited about all of the outside events.
thank you so much for all your work on that. Any questions for Emily? Awesome stuff. Thank you. I don't believe there's a report from the organization committee. We have a full group still, so I'll let you know if anything new needs to move on to that. The next is fundraising and committee and fundraising committee, presentation committee, whatever the case may be. We are still in the fundraising phase. Just because the application was due doesn't mean that we stop that particular process. So we want to continue to meet with our stakeholders and with anybody. We have a big need in this application process to get as many volunteers to write to sign something that says they're committed to this whole Main Street idea, as well as all of us and anybody else that's in the downtown that can give us some sort of support. As I've mentioned in the past, we need a large stack and it's going to get real. So I'll move right on to what's happening. I'm going to make the director interview. I'll move that down a little bit. I guess it was 2 Fridays ago, the 31st, the application was due. I want to go ahead and make mention to my assistant Ashley and Michelle Dewey and Greg Thank you for the hard work in those last few days. By the way, Mark, to get you started on your building inventory, we had to have that complete, and Michelle did it, and so did some of our great people like Matt and everything. So we have a heck of a building inventory all of a sudden because we had to perform that as part of the application process. But I can't thank Michelle enough. I can't thank the work for the city enough to stay partnered with me as we got that application in. We put the application in, we got a physical copy, 3-ring binder, overnighted it. You know, I was actually in Traverse City and I was still working on it in the morning. And then Lisa and I'd go take off. But Ashley did a great job, overnighted it. And Monday morning, I received an email from Lee going, "Where's your online submission?" And I said, "You didn't tell me we had to have an online submission." "Well, yes, you do. And I'll give you till midnight tonight." So then we went and started copying and pasting. Well, Ashley was copying and. But I will say she devoted a lot of effort toward that. And we successfully got our at 4:45 on Monday, we got our application submitted. We have received response from Laura that works with the MEDC and the Michigan Main Streets. And you see some on your agenda. They're coming to us on September 2nd. They're going to come downtown. They're going to talk to all of us. They're going to walk around, check our inventory out, and just give us some overall guidance. It's a little strange because this seemed like not the process before. There's some refining they're doing with us right here with some of these visits, and even and some of the work they're doing to get our application ready for October 5th or 6th. That's the event where we go up to Lansing, and all of us, as many as we can, and we fill the room and we give our presentation. But what's fine is they're fine tuning our application still. So we have sort of a second chance. We got what we could in and did the best, but we're now having a visit from them. So as you saw, Ashley, September 1st, oh, I wrote it wrong. September 1st, you probably received an invite from Ashley already to mark your calendars and get ready for their visit as they come to town. So here we go. It's getting real. It's gonna be the next step in the process. As I go back, let's see here. Any questions on that so far? All right. So we've had an interview committee, and I appreciate all of you. There's a lot of us on that committee, which is really good. It shows a lot of interest in what we've done. We've interviewed a number of candidates at this point, and we're going into second round interviews. So we're trying to pull that off. We actually have a first interview still coming up as well. But we've had some good candidates that's come through the process so far. So we'll continue to work diligently, and hopefully we'll have a recommendation to you by our next meeting.
Just a question there, Dusty. At the most recent interview, there were definitely some questions raised about salary, about our ability to get someone committed for more than a year or two. And I'll just say I'm a little concerned about our process of moving forward and feeling confident that we have good candidates. I just have some real concerns about that like maybe we're pushing too hard to get this role filled and we don't have our ducks all in a row. I mean, we don't have an ability to negotiate salary at this point. We don't, because this board hasn't approved that. And I wonder if we shouldn't have a small group really dig into a salary survey. What is it that we really want? Is a 1 year or 2 year commitment okay for this role? I guess I left the interview feeling a little bit like we had some unanswered questions as a group of interviewers, and that doesn't feel like a very good way to go into a next round of interviews.
So currently, I think we had a range of 50 to 60,000, I think is what we put on there. And there was a study that was given to me by Lee Young, of all people from the MEDC, to tell us what they're charging in this city, what they're charging, what they're offering in this city, that city, and the case. And it seemed like that was going to be the high end of the equation. I would say the current economic environment and the way the job market is today, that's changing as fast as we're speaking.
Yeah.
As fast as we are talking, it's changing. And with that in mind, if we have one of those candidates that we've looked at, we wanted to go high side or go and change that, I think that would be something that we should be able to have the latitude to do, because we really want to keep somebody 3 to 5 years if at all possible. Maybe it is true that through that 50 and 60 range, there's nothing but turnover because it's meeting a particular minimum that we're seeing out there anyway, and it's probably going to get us turnover unless somebody has complete passion and, it's or driven by a calling or something of that nature. The dilemma we talked about was, now they've went through the interview process. Did we go back out and say, no, this looks a little bit more like this? It actually has a higher price tag to, or, higher salary range to it, and go back out and throw the net back out and see if we want to see if we can attract more people. So I leave that up to the discussion of this board, because there's the idea of if we feel like the ones we've interviewed are not enough at this point, and we want to see more, we need to talk about that now.
I guess I just would say, I wasn't in the first interview, but the comments that I heard were very mixed on that candidate. Then the second candidate, again, I think there were some concerns vocalized. And I guess it's such a critical role. I want to have a unanimous support, and I want everyone to feel that we have the right candidates. And I'm concerned that we're pushing to fit a candidate into what we, to make them mold to what we want. And that usually doesn't work. And is it worth continuing or redefining is probably too dramatic, but we just want to make sure we get the right person. And it doesn't feel like our first round really has generated that.
Yeah, and in respect of all of it, we maybe had 6 candidates and we've interviewed 3 or 4 of the 6, I think. So that's really light. That is really light. And
Mr. Chair,
there was some good ones, but go
I
ahead.
just would like to encourage you and the committee to be cautious and to feel very comfortable about saying, gee, let's do another round. The committee and this board has been in the middle of a transition with Main Street. You guys have been extremely busy. I think it'd be wonderful to say, let's start again in October 1st, take another look. Coming out of getting the Main Street approval, I'm just saying that don't feel like you have to, unless you guys feel wonderful about one of these candidates, feel free to start over at another point.
Yeah, the prerequisite for Main Street is not that we have a director in place at the time they approve us, but that we are pursuing it. And they do show right in their material that they assist in the actual hiring and development of that person. So, there's room for slowdown here.
Yeah.
There's definitely room for slowdown. So we'll call the committee together. It's a pretty big committee, good. So we'll call the committee together and rediscuss this and discuss whether or not we should change that price range. Does this body have a concern of us moving it up $10,000 or something of that nature? Or should we come back and recommend that and the rationale, I guess, maybe from the committee?
The only thing I'll say is that, like, as of fiscal year 18, the highest position in the entire state was 74 for this position. So we're already up there. The average is about 51 as of fiscal year 18. And so we're on the high end. I know it's just a tough job market right now, but I think we're paying a fair amount for this position. Or, the ballpark is right,
I know it is a slightly different level for this, but I was forwarded, Ann Arbor recently posted regarding their equivalent of this position, which of course has a couple people underneath it, but that was a 115. So, of course, completely different size of community and everything, but I would support increasing it a bit so we can hopefully find the right person who's going to be there. Obviously, we can't expect, say, 10 years out of somebody, but at least a good 3 to 5 years because it is a tough job market.
Dusty?
Yeah, now I'll challenge. Yeah, go ahead, Margaret.
Thank you, Dusty.
Yes.
I appreciate all of your comments. And I think that we have some seasoned employers on the committee. I think that it is a little premature. I think that if we aren't finding the candidate, then I think we start to talk about whether or not we have the proper salary range in there right now. I think I would like to see us proceed in that $60,000 range, at least through one more slate of candidates, especially based on that 70-some thousand figure. I don't know that that in and of itself will find us the candidate. And I do think that we define what we're looking for. The candidate comes in based on what we're looking for, and then defines the character of the role and becomes the person that serves our needs, bringing to that role the personality and the other positive qualities that creates the position into a better situation for the city. And I think that's what we really want. We want a candidate that fits all these qualifications and then enhances it because they're such a special person. And we want to make sure that we can commend that with some increase in salary as time goes on. And that's what helps keep that person. And we want to make sure we have that range. I'm not hearing from the committee, we're not getting any candidates because we're not competitive in the market. And I heard that maybe we do it one more round. And until the committee's saying to us, we've got nothing, I don't know that we want to stretch it out in there until we're actually hearing that, unless I'm missing it, and that's what they're saying.
No, go ahead.
I think I'm on that committee and I think that the concern is just that longevity. The concern is this person going to stay in this role for more than a few years, like at least more than 2. And that was the fear that I think we had coming out of those interviews, because it was sounding like, so I think that's what led to this discussion. I'm not sure, to be honest with you, that any more money will keep somebody there. I mean, that's just kind of how this is right now. And especially in these kind of roles, I think you do see quite a bit of, using it as a stepping stone, or you just see high turnover because they're moving on to a different, area or a bigger city or whatever it may be. There's no guarantee ever that we're going to keep somebody just because we pay them more. But I don't really know what the answer is, but I feel like that is like the crux of what we were really feeling coming out of those interviews.
Dusty, may I respond?
So I think sure. All right.
Mayor, I don't know if that's the nature of the beast. I just don't know the answer of that. Or if at that time we will have created a relationship that, adding incentive at that time or including in our description of the position, incentives available, throughout the relationship would incite them to stay longer. Presidents of universities stay 7 years now. The employer-employee relationship is so very different today than it was, years back. So it's hard to describe and define it.
A previous city manager mentioned that the tenure for city managers is 3.825 years. So it's not, we don't keep people. And those of us like Don Taylor, who've been around forever, Greg's going to double that or triple that. We go through people, Don, you remember over the years, these roles change. So if we got somebody that stayed for 2 years, I think we call that a win. And then maybe that person is good that they've left. So maybe this group will evolve enough in the next period of time that if we got 2 years, let's call that a victory. And then we can decide what happens after that, because there's going to be a lot of transition the next 2 years in this organization.
So for an action standpoint, here's what I think we should do. I posted the job on Michigan Main Street, posted on the development, forget what the name of it is. There's three places. The city posted it. Maybe there's just a reposting of the position again to keep it open so that it goes fresh on those boards or wherever the case may be. I think I spent $300 or $400 to get that done. We may have to do it again just to get it back fresh in front of everyone and everybody that's out there. And again, we had the range from 50 to 60, but maybe we changed the range from 55 to 60 or 55 to get off that back, that low end, that 50 or whatever. I don't know, maybe 65, any of that, but not 70. But maybe it'll entice. I don't know. Again, like Margaret said, I don't think that's the driving factor. I think we have a really strange environment that's going on. And Greg, you can attest, it's been difficult to get even, interviews for a lot of the positions we have in the city.
Yeah, so we just went through the search for community development director, of course, which is somewhat similar position. Now we ended up paying 85 for that. We have when we hire, we have a classification study that the Municipal League did some years back now, but it's been the wages, the salaries have been increased from time to time based on cost of living increases. So it should be relatively current, although non-union staff tells me it has not kept up with what union wages have done during that same period of time by a factor of about 2 in terms of the percentages. But it took me 6 months to find a community development director. And what I found is that when we first posted it, we got a big slug of applications, probably 20. None of them, well, a couple of them pretty good. In fact, I had extended a job offer to a person in the first group who turned it down. I think probably mostly based on logistics. But then every time we refreshed it, we got fewer and fewer. And fortunately, ultimately, the one that we got was a good one, and we were able to make that higher. But it's certainly diminishing returns the longer you leave it out there in the same fashion that it's been posted. I mentioned to the group doing the interviews that just prior to that last interview, we had just scored the new position that we have posted right now, which is Parks and Recreation Director. And that's scored in the lower end of what we would pay a department head. And that, roughly that's 60 to 70,000 a year for a department head with minimal, with lesser duties than some department heads have. Department heads score up from that into the 70, 80, $90,000 range.
Excellent. Great information. All right, so we'll have the committee reconvene, make some decisions, refresh, don't you think? And the like, and we'll see what we can get. We'll keep it open. And we'll continue with the interviews we're doing and go back and see if there's anything more there that comes from that. So I appreciate the committee's hard work on this, and Main Street's coming forward, and let's get ready to rumble, because October 5th and 6th will be here like that. That'll be a flash. So it's going to go quickly. All right, this is where we move over to Greg again. Sorry, you could have stayed at the podium. Mark wanted you to have a discussion about city as DDA, some visioning.
Well, I didn't prepare anything for today since it wasn't on the agenda, but I'll make some extemporaneous remarks. I've mentioned a couple times now about the new Parks and Recreation Director position. That is not a new position as such. It exists in the city code. The city commission authorized refilling that position. And it looks a little different than it did in the past when we had a full recreation program. Now that's partnerships as opposed to the city putting on those programs themselves, at least initially. And that's part of the reason the position scored lower than it had in the past. But we're hopeful that we'll get a good candidate for that position. And that, as I mentioned, that has an impact on the downtown. A lot of what happens in terms of keeping the downtown looking good happens by way of the Parks Department, emptying the trash, keeping the weeds out of the parking lots, and planting street trees. You might notice there are some empty tree boxes still downtown. I've asked our superintendent to make sure he has some more maples on order for the fall so that we can fill more of those tree boxes this fall and get the street trees back to looking the way they should on our downtown streets. Another thing that has some great currency, which has some effect on the DDA as well, is our efforts with respect to blight remediation in the city. Mark, together with Scott Westfall, has chaired a committee that has met over the course of some period of time to talk about blight in the city and addressing the issue of blight in the city. And we had occasion to meet with the new community development director last Thursday, I guess it was, Mark, for a presentation and Q&A. And one of the things that came up during the questions was, well, is there something we can do about vacant downtown buildings and the way that they look? And there are some notorious examples downtown right now, one or two of which the city owns. And so we're trying to lead by example, but we're thinking about at least an ordinance that could address window treatments in those sorts of buildings so that they aren't, you're not looking in the window at a bunch of pigeon crap and, other sorts of detritus that really detract from one's experience on the sidewalk. So that's something that you may see coming in the near future. Also happy to answer any questions if you have any about what we're doing on any front.
Greg, I'd just like to commend you and the mayor and the participants in that team. You guys are doing a wonderful job at moving ahead at planning and developing ways for our community to be stronger and better. And it's the energy that I've seen. It's just been wonderful. And thank you, thank you, thank you.
I'd like to continue that. I've been involved for a number of years, and I know the city has always supported the DDA, but with things like the trees, the increase in flower pots, the amount of hours that they've devoted to our DDA in this downtown is fantastic, and we appreciate the partnership so much. We appreciate the commission for being so supportive of all the things that we bring their way. And so I don't think we could do any of the impacts that we're doing without this partnership. So we appreciate it.
I should mention that, we're happy to continue that with your new director. There are ideas that could be pursued in terms of perhaps borrowing that employee from the city, which might be of interest to you to help you put together a more attractive package for an applicant. We already have insurance and benefits and all those kinds of packages and all those kinds of things set up. And when the library first was spun off from the city, and they may still have a borrowed employee at this point, I'm not sure, but for a time that their employees were city employees that they paid us for, but and they supervised, but that were under our compensation program. So that's an option for you as you explore what the Main Street Director position wants to offer and wants to look like.
So just to clarify on that, while it is that we would pay for that and borrowed employee, that employee would be at the directly responsible to the DDA. The evaluations, the decision to keep that employee or to remove that employee, there would not be overlap from the city in that arrangement. Would you agree?
Right. That's
Okay.
right.
Mr. Chair, I just highly, highly recommend that we move in that direction. We're not a management team here, and the city is professional at running human relations staff and et cetera. I'd really encourage the group to look at that arrangement with the city.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, we're going to call for a meeting fairly quickly of the committee. We got some good stuff to talk about. Thank you, Greg.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. I just have a few comments. We're running a little long. It's 9:30.
Chair, I'm sorry. I was hoping on the
Oh,
visioning.
discussion on
thing.
visioning. Sorry, Mark.
I-
I went by it. I didn't know if it was the same. She caught me.
So I would hope that we could discuss and perhaps get a motion under the area of organization, committee and organization. I'm feeling that we need to take a little bit of a mini deep dive, this group to focus on, we have a beautiful mission statement, but as far as where we're going, I feel like when we bump into things like property and downtown development, it seems to me like the opportunity that we've had in the past, we have the Gibbs study, we have the MSU study with Harmony, that there's an opportunity for us to get together to say, these within the context of Main Street and within the context of our mission statement, there's still a gap there on how we should, on how we as a DDA should prioritize. You know, Greg just mentioned that we have a number of buildings downtown that are pretty ugly, that we have some vacant properties that, so there's a number of issues I'd like to see us figure out how to deal with in the context of this agenda that we're doing. I think we've made tremendous progress. What I would like to propose is a small group of us. I'd like to be on it, like the mayor on it, the chair on it, maybe one or two more, to get together with 2 or 3 times using the Gibbs study and the MSU study to come back to the board and say, here's 2 or 3 areas in the next 2 or 3 years in the context of Main Street, that these would be priorities that we want to move ahead with, so that when an issue like a piece of property comes up, or our decision to move ahead on trying to attract a certain kind of a retail business, that we actually have a kind of a priority in place to do that. So I'd love to have a motion in place for a group to come together under organization to come back to the board with 3 priorities. You might call it a vision or whatever, but some statement about areas that it's important for this group to focus on in the context of the Main Street criteria as we move ahead. Anybody want to make that motion?
I would so move.
Been a motion by Jerry to create a committee.
So discussion.
Is there support though? It's my support. And we'll go to there's support, Emily. All right, now discussion. Any details on that? I want to make mention in the backdrop of this that, am I close enough? All right. The strategic planning we went through with Harmony, and at that time, there was a lot of people that showed up to round 1 of that and the visioning that they did with us. Round 2, it was about halved. In round 3, we were down to about 8 of us or 5 of us. Mark, I think Mike, you were even at the last one. But there was just a few of us at the end. And so they wrapped this thing up, put a bow on it, tell us it's our strategic plan. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't believe it ever got drilled down and granular like we need it to be. I'm absolutely convinced that's the case. Actually, our agenda is more granular than our strategic plan. With that said, one of the things that you see in select level is work plan development, which I'm assuming that they're going to dig into our strategic plan, grab our action items and make us for it and push us towards prioritization. So I think it's great to get the committee together, but get ready because that's going to be a part of what they expect of us right off the bat.
Okay.
They're going to expect that right off the bat. I've seen it in all their literature. And I've
Well,
talked to
but
Lee.
to add, I think the more we can be on the same page with the strategic plan and really narrowing in, like, we don't have a whole ton of goals listed out in our strategic plan. We don't have a vision statement, and that's going to be a problem when we meet with them. So if we can already prove that we're, since application, already amending and already digging into those things, I think that would be beneficial. I don't think that would be time wasted.
Awesome.
I'd be happy to chair that for a couple of meetings and then come back to the board and see what we have.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Further discussion. There's been a motion and support. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Thank you, Mark, for appreciate that. We now move to public comment. Honestly, it's sort of like music there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just kidding. All right, public comment. There's nobody here from the public. Okay, any other DDA matters for this body today that we have not spoke of?
I'm not sure if this would fall under other DDA matters or board member comment, but as we know, Artilicious is rapidly approaching, and one of the Main Street critical areas to focus on is volunteer engagement. And if we're looking at becoming more involved with downtown events, it would be great if we could get a jump on demonstrating our volunteer engagement by rounding up some volunteers to help with Artilicious. I know that we could use help with I would like to say waste management, but we have the czar of waste management already, who's captain of the Gator running around downtown, but you could use a lot of help. And there's also room in the Artist Entertainment Lounge, which is directed by the lovely Ann Kneisel, who will pamper you with snacks to no end if you'd like to participate there. So anybody who would like to be involved with that, so we can get that on our track record as a good show of volunteer support for an event, just let me know and I can help connect you with the appropriate parties who will make it very fun.
Oh, there was one item that I did not put on the agenda and I should have. I'm just trying to get all the details we're working on. You remember the Airstream of 2023? All right, so I should have brought this up earlier. So they came to us and said, or we had to answer a couple questions for the RFP. And the one that was the biggest one was whether or not we could handle the electrical outlets for 125 campers in our downtown areas. The thing we looked at when we first talked about that was how big that would be for our downtown. And I sort of, the application deadline was really the 31st for the RFP for that organization, but they've contacted me and given a little extension at this time for discussion saying, we do not have a real diagram. Maybe Mike, you would be the closest one I know that would have a diagram of the electrical capacity of our downtown, where the 110s are, where the 220s and where the boxes are and all that. But there was this all of a sudden discussion with Greg and I, as we were talking about Michelle, all of us, we started thinking, could you imagine 100 generators going off in downtown? There's no way. No. Now they have these generators that go down alleyways and big cords come out and you can feed a lot with those. But again, the question was the city going to step up and provide that and the like, or are they going to bring it to us? Without them being able to see a diagram of that, they're not going to be able to tell us what their capacity needs are at this time. The other thing that we kept as we dug into it, and I know Justin's done great work on this, he's been a great partner, he's been talking to it, he's excited. But that's, I believe it's 3 to 4 days those campers locked up our streets as well. And so I think when I look back at it and we're talking about it, it's late in the game and I had all my focus on Main Street. I still think that's a lot of people for the downtown, 125. I think the overflow goes to the fairgrounds. We were concerned about, what's it called? Gray.
Wastewater.
Wastewater, but we found out that the fairgrounds is an approved place. So all of our real objections came down to this electrical capacity, could they handle it? And so, because we met everything else. And so I guess I need to reopen that discussion real quick because Justin's wanted to know, do we submit and say we're going to be able to handle it when that day comes? And Greg, maybe you can make more comment on that.
Well, like you say, really probably the only option for that kind of electrical demand would be large generators that would be located back alleys, and then you have to run cables and you have to, conduit on the sidewalk so people don't trip over the cables, that sort of thing. And that's going to be a cost. And is it worth it to the DDA to pay that cost, for the event? And then the fair board is a necessary partner for this because the city can't accommodate the direct dumping of that wastewater. So they have to go to a campground, which the fair is a state approved campground. But I don't know whether the fair's been approached about being that campground for this purpose and willing to partner in that application. But I think they would be a necessary partner in that application.
Thank you.
Dusty, would they be a better site, the fairgrounds, for this event? And
I think
at the downtown at some point.
I was in Traverse City and I think maybe Justin sent me an email and it was something like, if we can't absolutely be sure, then maybe we should pass on this round. I don't know. I know he wants it. I know I would like to see it if we had the capacity to handle it. We also have new street lamps coming in downtown. And at that time, I think we'd have a better understanding of what our electrical capacity is. Would you agree, Greg? Once we go through all that and pull the street lamps and all that. So not being able to give them a definitive answer puts us in, in somewhat of a precarious position. The other thing is I look back at it as I ask myself, if it's all those campers are lining the streets for 4 days, what does that do? And have we really surveyed our downtown businesses? Now we looked at it and said it was great, but we talked about it today, surveying our downtown businesses as to whether they would like something like this. But can you imagine locking up the front of everything? Because it's every street like this, and it's beautiful from above. There's nothing, it's cool. I did hear from somebody, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Justin, that a lot of these campers come prepared. They don't come with and buy the food downtown per se. They come prepared. They're campers. And so they come and come downtown. But where most of the business comes from, again, is our people coming down and seeing it, our citizens and coming down and visiting it. So it's a major event. So I feel like at this point, I'm having a hard time saying that I can answer their RFP effectively. And that we defer maybe one more year and see if we would want to do this. Is that okay with all of you?
I would support that motion. And I think, I don't know, is this something that like consumers is able to give kind of a map of their power grid in the downtown?
Well, I mean, honestly, I don't know. But it's not really their system, right? It's our system.
Right.
And I just can't, I can't imagine even when we have the new street lamps with power in H1, you know, that being sufficient for this purpose. When you talk about that many people wanting to hook up all at the same time, you know, it just seems like the generators are going to be necessary for that. But I honestly, yeah, we don't have a great map of the electrical grid downtown right now. Yeah, with the electrical outlets downtown, I should say. It's not the grid.
I know that our city engineer was looking at it at one point because it came up during Cinco de Mayo because we found out there was not a 220 where they needed it. And so then we started discussing that, and he was going to start looking at where we actually did have that amount of power. And he was saying that it wasn't very good. He was not finding hardly any. He was just finding, and even some of the 110s, like they didn't work, or there was a big lack of electricity downtown. I know that from discussing that with the city engineer at one point.
So motion to defer the RFP to 2022.
20, it'd be this 23, so it may even be
But we'd have
24
to
or when
apply,
they offer,
we'd have to
whenever they,
apply in 22. Okay, for
Yep.
to a future date.
to a future date. Is a motion, is there support?
Support.
Is there any further discussion?
Just out of the box question, if we still wanted these folks still to come into our community, do they have to come to a downtown setting?
That's their preference.
Their preference is a downtown
Yeah,
setting,
yeah,
kind of
that's
like
what-
Back to the Bricks?
It's exactly right.
Okay,
You'll see the pictures from above from all the cities they visit.
okay.
And again, they're eager to come here. We're eager to have that kind of activity in our downtown, but seeing that we missed the deadline and then they call me and say, hey, can you, figure this out? I have a feeling they're amicable to try to work something out together. So let's do some more research on this and see if we can get into position. And I think we do need to whenever we're going to lock the street ups for a day or 2 days, but mainly 4, we would need to get some buy-in from everybody. So let's take a step back and make sure we're in the right place. Okay. Sounds good. All right. There's been a motion and support. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Thank you. Also, just to make mention on volunteerism and in-kind services, and I know I'm going to make him feel uncomfortable, but when it comes to a person that I think of all the way back to the Maple City Festival, when it comes to giving his time and effort, is Mike McLemore right here. He's helped with the bands downtown. He helps with stages, and he gets called at a moment's notice, and he can be somewhere and come and show up and make it happen. I need to quantify that for our application, Mike. I really do, because they ask about in-kind contributions and they ask about volunteerism. And while if you were in business and did it for the price you do for us down here, you would go bankrupt. So we appreciate your support.
Yeah.
It needs to be recognized. So we truly appreciate that. And again, I'll get back to you. So that's part of the application process. All right. Any other board member comments today? Yes.
Did you want to have any discussion regarding the Main Street video?
Oh, thank you. I should have slowed down a little bit. So in that application, I'll send you, in the email I received, there was on the second paragraph, it said, you need to, I didn't bring it today, but it was basically, why do you want to be a Main Street and the like? And we have to produce a video. And I thought, man, we have the perfect person on the DDA for this. This is just amazing. So I sent it over to him right away. And so this video needs to be done by like September 22nd. And it's 15 minutes allowed. So that's a big video, 15 minutes. We don't have to use all of that, but it's part of the application, believe it or not, this time. And that was not the case before. So now that we have these high-skilled producing filmmakers with us, I think we can come up with some great stuff. Greg, would you like to make comment?
Will just be useful to just throw out, can I share the contents of that
Yes,
paragraph?
absolutely, yes.
So what was forwarded, I'll just go through real quick. This year, the community presentations will be done virtually. We plan to hold them over 2 days in October. We'll be asking your community to provide a video ahead of time to replace the on-site presentation. In the video, we're looking for you to cover 3 areas of focus. 1, why your organization wants Main Street. 2, a statement of community support in a way you feel it demonstrates the support of the local community and the stakeholders. And 3, what you feel Main Street is going to do for your community to help elevate your Main Street district. So in terms of the format of the video that came to mind right away is we need testimonials. So we need to have a clear statement targeted towards certain people as to why Main Street will be highly beneficial for the area. And we need to get that verbal support from them so that way we can include it in this video. So if we're going to pull this off in time, I'm going to need some logistical help from all of you to help me find these people and prime them to say the things that we want them to say in this video, and I can handle the filming. The other thing is these videos are beneficial to us long-term because they can be standalone testimonial pieces. They can go on websites, they can go on social media, they can be used time and time again. Each time we do fundraising, so on and so forth. So this isn't just work for this application. This is something that we can use long-term. But I will need some help from all of you in finding these people to talk to, and then I can help take it from there. And then if we put together a small review group to look at this video and make sure that as we're putting it together, that it aligns with our collective vision for this organization, that would be helpful. Too many cooks spoil the broth, so keeping it small, keeping it tight would be appreciated in that regard as well. Anything else, Dusty?
Oh, it's wonderful. And then to those of you that love that kind of thing, if you could join in Drake and help him out in a small group to get him and get us all focused on that. Again, what are we at? August 11th or 12th? 11th. My God, I had that wrong on the email, by the way. And that's going to come so fast. So Drake, thanks for your work on this and anything I can do to help with that as well. And we'll go around. Yes, Jerry.
Just to, is there compensation being prepared for video?
I think it's a great question and I appreciate that. So often we get to the presumption that one of our DDA members that does something for a profession, we would assume they would do it for free. So Drake, could you maybe put together a little reasonable proposal, what that might cost to all
Yeah,
of us?
we can do a combination of something like that and some in kind as well. So,
Appreciate you asking that.
Yeah.
thank you.
And since it's going to be high speed, because the video has to be for 22nd, our next meeting would be only a week or two prior to that. Can we get a sort of a pre-approval of up to something for Drake? I don't know where to even ballpark it, but just something where it'd be reasonable.
Drake, could you whisper us a number in my direction? I'm happy to make the motion. I mean, I know what we would pay at the Croswell.
I hate to do this in front of everybody, but it's
I'm
tough. We're
happy
under
to-
time limit.
I'm happy to have Drake come back to us with something that's at whatever point, and that.
And it'll be reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We don't
Okay.
need to do that then. We don't need to motion it. Excellent. Thank you, Drake.
Do we already have like a discretionary limit in place, or would it be helpful if I just wrote down a number now?
I think we could, yeah, I think that would be fine. I don't know. I've not been here. Go ahead, Jerry, help me.
I think I'm happy to make a motion that provides support for Drake creating this video needed for Main Streets prior to the deadline. If costs and expenses will exceed $7,500, he would need to come back to this group before our next meeting. Is that a reasonable?
We could go lower than that too.
All right. There's been a motion to just a pretty high, ceiling that was put there just so we can keep moving. Is there support?
Support.
There's been support by the mayor. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. All right, there was quite a few. I got to do better on my agenda, so maybe I will have the executive committee meet with me a week prior to these meetings going forward, because I missed 3 or 4 or 5 topics today, so I apologize for that. Are there any more board comments before we make a motion to adjourn?
Real quick, just wanted to support Emily's information on the welcome back students. I encourage all of us to be downtown for that. If you have a changeable letter sign, get something out, say welcome back. Rotary does free water and stuff. And so just to be down there and shake hands, welcome the students back. They're wandering around the downtown. And part of it is that we give them the sense that they're really appreciated for being there. So you don't have to do anything other than bring yourself there and wave at people, shake some hands. So let's just be sure we get people downtown from the community welcoming the students back. And it's not just a student event. Lastly, just wanted to mention that October 1st, we have our Taste of Lenawee at the Adrian Armory. It's on First Friday. It's an event from 5 to 8 where we serve food and drinks and little entertainment. Encourage everybody to consider working that into your First Friday schedule. Still looking for a few additional food vendors if anyone has any interest in that. And of course, we're always looking for sponsors. Thank you. Bye.
All right, thank you.
And just to clarify too, on the trick or treat, I've been thinking about it while we've been sitting here. I just want to really make sure that, we do that survey of businesses and that they are on board. And whether Chuck is wanting to do it or not, I'm totally willing to work side by side with him or even take it over if he doesn't want to do it. I just really want to make sure my big thing is really making sure that the businesses truly are on board with it. And I really want to make sure about that before we pursue it.
Excellent.
Move we adjourn.
There's a motion to adjourn. Is there support? Any further discussion? All right, we are all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Violation.